When you think of Freddie Mercury, what's the first thing that comes to mind? The voice, right? The mustache? That iconic strut across the stage? Well, today, we're gonna look past all of that, past the rock star, past the legend, and into the machine. We are going to literally reverse engineer a legacy. We're gonna deconstruct Freddie Mercury, not as a gifted musician, but as one of the most incredible structural and frequency engineering projects ever. So yeah, this isn't just music history. This is about the architecture of greatness itself. Let's get into it.
So let's start with the big question, the one that reframes everything. When you saw Freddie Mercury command a stage, holding tens of thousands of people in the palm of his hand, were you just watching a man performing songs? Or were you witnessing a meticulously designed system executing a complex, pre-calculated program? We're going to make the case that his legendary status wasn't some lucky break. It was a deliberate, engineered outcome, a result of conscious design, not just raw talent.
Our mission in this explainer is, well, it's pretty ambitious. We're going to strip away all the layers of myth and magic to show you the cold, hard mechanics underneath. We're going to prove that the status of legend isn't some gift from the gods. No, it's something you build piece by meticulous piece with the precision of an engineer. We're not just telling a story, we're laying out the blueprint.
And this right here, this was the core operating principle of his entire system. This wasn't just some catchy phrase for him. It was a total rejection of limits. Think about it. While everyone else was looking for safety, trying to build a stable career, Mercury was designing his life to operate exclusively at the absolute upper boundary of what was possible. He didn't just want to push the envelope. He wanted to redesign it completely. See, for him, safety was the bare minimum, the floor. But the ceiling, becoming a legend, that was the only place worth living.
So what was the goal of this massive engineering project? It was to achieve this very specific state, sovereign legend. It's a really powerful idea. It means you don't just play the game better than everyone else, you rewrite the rules so the game is played on your terms. You take the very things that make you an outsider, your background, what people see as your flaws, and you weaponize them. You turn them into your ultimate strategic advantage. You don't dominate by fitting in, you dominate through an expression so powerful and technically perfect that it becomes impossible to deny. And this is the formula that makes it all happen. We're calling it the Mercury equation, and it's the blueprint for this entire analysis. On one side, you have pure, unadulterated technical mastery, your skills, your hardware. That's the what you can do. On the other side, you have radical, fearless authenticity, the unique operating system that runs it all. That's the who you are. When you combine those two things with intention, the output isn't just success, it's true sovereignty.
Okay, so where does a project of this magnitude even begin? Well, it starts with a detailed audit. Before he could build his system, he had to meticulously analyze the environment he was walking into and identify all its weaknesses. And this crucial phase didn't happen in a recording studio. Nope, it happened long before the stadiums, back when he was just a young man named Farrokh Bulsara selling secondhand clothes in a London market.
This slide pinpoints the exact moment of creation. Picture Kensington Market in 1969. The music industry had a very specific standard operating procedure. They were looking for the next blues rock hero, another polished product. Conformity was the name of the game. But Farrokh Bulsara, a Parsi immigrant from Zanzibar, a total outsider, had this profound realization. For him, fitting in was a death trap. He understood that his outsider status wasn't a weakness, it was his greatest strategic advantage. This is the hinge moment, the critical decision to not just look for a gig, but to build an entire empire, a royal construct.
And this table just lays out the fundamental conflict between these two mindsets. The industry's SOP was all about safety, fitting in, being accepted. It treated the artist like a product to be sold. Mercury's principle was the polar opposite. It was about creating a signal so powerful it couldn't be ignored. It was about a total, unapologetic saturation of the ego, a deep understanding that the path to immortality wasn't through humility, but through calculated grandeur. He refused to be a product. He insisted on being the architect.
This was his core strategic insight, the key that unlocked everything. He saw the music industry for what it was, a giant hammer, designed to pound every artist into the same predictable shape. But he also saw its critical flaw. It was a hammer trying to hit a ghost. It was built to deal with things it could categorize, not with true, radical originality.
So his solution was brilliant. Stop being a ghost. Become a physical, undeniable force. Become a frequency so powerful that it physically rattles the room.
This brings us to his primary tool, his most formidable weapon, and we're not talking about its songwriting or his charisma. We're talking about the raw, physical machine that was his voice, and how he deployed it not like a singer, but with the precision of a military strategist. It was time to build that physical force.
Okay, so you have to understand, this wasn't just singing. He weaponized a rare biological phenomenon called subharmonic oscillation. See, most singers produce one frequency. Mercury could engage his ventricular folds, they're sometimes called false vocal cords, to create a second, lower frequency at the same time. The result is a sound that isn't just heard, it's physically felt. It's a vibration that registers in your chest. He wasn't just performing in a room, he was mapping its frequency, commanding its very physics. And the raw power behind this vocal weapon was just staggering. A 4-octave vocal range. To put that into perspective, most professional singers work within maybe 2.5 octaves. 4 octaves is like having a vehicle that can compete in a Formula One race and then immediately pivot to dominate an off-road rally. This versatility gave him an almost unfair advantage. This just highlights how deeply he understood his own hardware. Mercury was born with 4 extra incisors. Now, in an industry obsessed with image, most people would have seen this as a flaw, something to be corrected. But Mercury, the engineer, saw it for what it was, a unique biological advantage. Those extra teeth created a larger resonance chamber in his mouth, a natural built-in amplifier. He famously refused to fix it, because you don't break a machine when it's working perfectly. And this quote ties it all back together perfectly. The 4-octave range, the subharmonic oscillations, the unique resonance chamber, that was all just hardware. Impressive specs, for sure. But the operating system that made them truly dangerous was the relentless, unapologetic fearlessness of his expression. You can have the most advanced weapon in the world, but it is utterly useless if you're afraid to pull the trigger. So let's be perfectly clear. When Freddie Mercury stepped up to a microphone, he wasn't there to just sing a melody. He was there to deploy a meticulously calibrated frequency weapon. Every note, every growl was calculated to strike with precision, to resonate with maximum impact. This wasn't just art, it was a conscious, strategic act of sonic warfare.
So he has the mindset and he has the weapon. The next question is, how does he apply this in the controlled environment of a recording studio? This is where we see him shift from a warrior to a master architect, most famously with a song that by all conventional logic should have been impossible.
You know, long before he was a rock star, he was studying the complex compositions of Chopin and Mozart. Most people treat this as a footnote, a cute side quest. But for Mercury the architect, it was his logistical foundation. When you've mastered the intricate structure of classical music, a standard 3-minute rock song is no longer a challenge. It becomes a canvas for an ambitious concept we'll call structural overloading.
And this blueprint shows that process in action. Bohemian Rhapsody wasn't written, it was executed like an engineering project. First, he lays the foundation, a complex operatic structure that the record label thought was commercial suicide. Then, the layering phase. Using analog tape, they recorded up to 180 separate vocal overdubs. The goal? Sonic saturation. To construct a wall of sound so dense and overwhelming that it would completely shatter the industry's rigid 3-minute pop song formula.
Now, the crucial point here is that this wasn't just about sounding big. It was a calculated strategy. Mercury understood a core principle of influence. The volume of the story is the strategy. By creating something so immense, so audacious, he made it impossible for the industry gatekeepers to ignore. The sheer scale of the song forced them to bend to his will, not the other way around. That wall of sound wasn't just music, it was a fortress. We've seen the architect in the studio. Now we move to the ultimate stress test of the entire system, the chaos of a live stadium. This is where all the pieces, the mindset, the weapon, the logic, come together in what is widely considered a masterclass of crowd engineering, Queen's 20-minute set at Live Aid in 1985.
Let's just establish the scale of the problem here. 72,000 people packed into Wembley Stadium, a live TV audience of an estimated 1.9 billion people. This isn't a concert, it's a small city. How do you possibly create a genuine connection with a crowd that massive, where the people in the back row are just tiny specks?
And that is the real engineering problem he had to solve. This wasn't a musical challenge, it was a logistical and a neurological one. The goal wasn't just to get the audience to sing along. The goal was way more ambitious, to achieve a state of mass neural synchronization. The objective was to get 72,000 individual nervous systems to fire in perfect unison, to transform a chaotic crowd into a single, cohesive organism under his direct command. And he did it using specific mechanical techniques. First, spatial dominance. He used that famous sawed-off mic stand not as a prop, but as a physical extension of his will, to visually touch the people in the very last row. Second, he used what we can call kinetic honesty. He retrained his voice to project with raw power in that huge space, closing the trust gap so the audience felt the authenticity. And finally, systematic flexibility. He treated every show like a lab experiment, constantly reading the crowd's energy and adjusting his approach in real time. This just provides a stark comparison. A standard rock band, even a great one, plays to the crowd. They push energy out and hope for a good reaction. Mercury's system was different. He actively redesigned the crowd's geometry. He didn't just push energy out, he engineered lanes for it to flow back to him. Think of that legendary I/O call and response. He wasn't giving a musical performance, he was conducting a live neural synchronization audit. And this is the genius of it. For any other performer, the huge scale of a stadium crowd is the biggest challenge, the enemy's weapon. But Mercury, in a move of pure audacity, turned that weapon against itself. He co-opted the crowd, transforming it from a passive audience into an active part of his own performance system. He made the crowd the instrument. Those 72,000 people became a synchronized network, their energy flowing perfectly through the lanes he had designed. Okay, so we've deconstructed the engineer, we've audited his system. Now, we get to the most important question. What does any of this mean for us? The final part of this explainer is about translating these principles from the stage to our own lives. It's about handing you the source code for greatness. This, right here, is the ultimate payoff. The entire elaborate system, the mindset, the weapon, the layering, the crowd control, it was all designed and executed for one singular goal: pure, unadulterated expression. And what Freddie Mercury proved, beyond any doubt, is that this kind of fearless expression is the only documented antidote to the quiet terror of invisibility, of being forgotten. So what are the actionable laws we can extract from this? First, you have to audit your own geometry. Know your tools, your skills, your unique advantages. Second, you have to reframe your outsider status. It is not a liability, it is your strategic high ground. Third, and this one is crucial, you have to understand that every time you cringe at the scale of your own ambition, you are willingly giving up leverage. Fourth, stop wasting energy fighting the norm and start investing that energy in building the grand. And finally, you have to internalize this. The most powerful, most dangerous thing you can be is fearless on purpose. And that brings us to the final, most important question, the challenge to you. What is your Wembley Stadium? It doesn't have to be a literal stage. It's that project at work, that crucial presentation, that difficult conversation, that thing in your life you've been treating as just another task. Where is the place you can stop just doing the work and start committing so deeply, so completely, so fearlessly to the full expression of your abilities that you finally unlock the legend within? Because in the end, that's the entire principle boiled down to its raw essence. The truth is in the logic. Greatness is not magic. It's not a lottery ticket. It is a system. And your unique, fearless, technically masterful expression, that is the code you use to run your system. That is the code for your greatness.